This is a community test of some third-party cables that you can buy, as well as a PowerPort. RICOH only supports their official cable and suggests that you plug it into a computer. However, in the real world, people are using third-party cables and third-party PowerPorts. Let's take a look at it. I'm going to select the Anker PowerPort4 A2142, which you can find on the product information page. Let's order it and check it out. The charger unit has an LED on the top with two colors, blue or green. When the charger is first plugged in, it is blue, indicating that it's either slow or no charge going through it. When the Z1 is plugged into the charger light should turn green. We're going to start the Z1 off at 76% charge. This is where it's at. The Z1, initially it's off. The side LED will be green, solid green, which indicates that it's reasonable charge. And the LED on the charger is also solid green. I'm going to test an inline current meter. This is testing for the electrical current that's passing between the charger and the Z1. In addition, this particular current meter also has data blocking capability. So we'll block all data. There should be no data, but any signal from the charger to the Z1. The Z1 is drawing about 0.68 amps at slightly more than 5 volts, 5.19. The PowerPort LED is a solid green. Even with the camera off, it is charging at 0.68 amps. Test with turning the camera, putting it into sleep mode, which is a short press of less than 2 seconds. Waking it up, the LED on the PowerPort4 still appears to be green, regardless of the condition of the camera. In addition to different charging states of the camera, we also tested it for real-world conditions of maybe the cable might be bent, possibly changing the resistance of the cable. This did not seem to impact the charging ability of the cable or the charging unit. Regardless of whether the camera is in sleep or on, the current going through it always appears to be over 500 milliamps. There's no situation where the camera is plugged into the Anker PowerPort4 and the LED on the device turns blue unless the camera is not plugged in. So if there's a break in the cable or the cable is not plugged into the camera, then the LED does turn blue. There's no other situation that I can replicate that has the camera turning or the LED turning blue when the camera is plugged in. You can plug it in. As soon as you plug it in, it turns green. The camera is at 80% charge. I'm going to put it to sleep. I short pressed the power button for less than 2 seconds. I'm going to plug it into the Anker PowerPort. The LED is currently blue. At 80% charge, the PowerPort turns solid green. even when the camera itself is in sleep mode. So while it's in sleep, and at 80% charge, the LED on the Anker PowerPort is green. So there appears to be no condition in which the Anker PowerPort is functioning plugged into the Z1 and the LED would be blue. So at 81% charge, I'm still pulling over 500 milliamps. It's at 550 milliamps, and the LED on the PowerPort is still solid green here. When the camera is plugged into the computer and it's charging, this LED should be bright green. The camera is currently in sleep mode, and it's plugged into the computer with just a standard USB cable that's going into the USB port right there. If the LED is off, that means the camera is fully charged. At this stage, the camera is about, let's say, maybe 60%. So I just took it out of sleep. You can see that the LED on the side of it is still green. The LED on the front is blue, and it's about 60% charged right now. I'm going to hold it for longer than 2 seconds. It goes off and the LED remains bright green. Thanks for joining us for this initial test of the Anker PowerPort4 and the Anker USB-C cables. It looks good so far. If the light on the Anker PowerPort is blue, it likely means the camera is not charging, at least in my test. What are some of the possible problems? And this would be the same if your camera is not charging with any type of PowerPort. One possibility, which is fairly common, I've experienced this myself, is the cable is broken. So you first want to isolate what is the problem. Replace the cable. Try using the cable that came with the camera, or switch it with other cables. I think it's very critical that you try to get the cable that came with the camera and test it with that, because that's a known working configuration of the cable. But if you can't find it, I think you can get by with just replacing the cable a number of times. Another possible problem that I've seen is that the USB-C connector, the physical connector on the camera body, could be a little loose. You know, if you're pulling that thing out and putting it back in again and again, it's theoretically possible for the connector to come loose. I've actually seen this when heavy use with the camera. It's kind of difficult to fix it. You may have to prop it up at an angle, but I think at least to isolate what the problem is, try wiggling around the cable while it's plugged into the charger and see if the light turns green. You can also hold it up at different angles or plug it into your computer to try to isolate whether it is the connector itself is loose. You can probably feel it too, right? Whether it's a solid connection or not. Another possibility is the charger itself could be broken. If this is the case, plug the cable into the computer. Ideally, it's the same cable that came with the camera. If you can't find it, try different cables, plug it into your computer. The computer should charge the camera if the computer is not in sleep. Some additional tests you could do is simply plug the camera into the computer and see if the computer is able to detect the camera. At least you know at least this point that the cable is at least somewhat working. Make sure it's charging the camera. When you plug the camera in sleep mode into the computer, the LED on the side of the camera will be bright green.